E aí, galera, beleza? Como é que vocês estão? E sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um vídeo aqui no canal. E eu sou o GUIL e hoje, sem mais delongas, eu vou pedir: se inscreva no canal, deixa o like se vocês gostarem do vídeo, comenta, compartilha, porque o YouTube não vai entregar o vídeo para vocês sem essas tarefas. Bom, hoje, galera, vamos assistir aí um videozinho, um pouquinho aí de um dos escritórios da PlayStation, né? Não sei bem onde fica, se é no Reino Unido ou nos Estados Unidos, mas é para vocês verem aí um acompanhamento, né? Eu achei um vídeo bem interessante para trazer para vocês. Lembrando, galera, se vocês gostarem desse formato de vídeo, a gente vai trazer mais. E eu vou deixar o link, né, no rodapé, na descrição ali, sobre o canal que eu peguei esse vídeo. Porque esse vídeo não é direto do meu canal, eu peguei ele de um outro canal, achei muito interessante para trazer aqui para vocês. E aí vocês podem visualizar pelo meu canal ou irem até o canal mesmo para poder visualizar por lá, beleza? Mas, sem mais delongas, tamo junto, bora lá, bora dar o play para rodar. Vou assistir junto com vocês.
Hey, it's Snax, and today we're going to the Sony PlayStation HQ to get hands-on with the PS5 PRO. So Sony flew me up to their San Mateo headquarters where I was able to play PlayStation games on the PS5 PRO versus the standard PS5 modes literally side by side and talk to some of the amazing folks from the game studios. I also take a quick peek at the limited edition 30th anniversary versions of the PS5 Pro as well. So thank you PlayStation for letting me get this hands-on experience early, and for the rest of you, let's check it out together.
I was running and I was so worried that I would miss my flight.
Oh look guys, it's Spider-Man's butt. No, for real, no, it's Spider-Man's butt. So this all took place during a pretty low-key event where only a handful of media outlets were invited. Walking in the event room were two big monitors set up at each game station, and we were able to check out games like The Last of Us Part 2, Spider-Man 2, Ratchet & Clank, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Some of the questions I had going in: what differences would I notice on the PS5 Pro versus the standard mode? Do games look better on the PS5 Pro? Does it feel better? And of course the loaded question of, is it worth it? Well, this is what we're going to find out. So if you're like me and like 70% of all PS5 players who prefer performance mode versus fidelity mode, playing in 30 frames per second just doesn't do it for me because the gameplay just doesn't feel as responsive. But there are times when I do play fidelity mode. For example, The Last of Us Part 2 is just so beautiful that I switch it to fidelity mode during the slower scenes. But obviously, fidelity mode does have a trade-off, as you guys already know, and that's the choppy 30 FPS you get. So I'm happy to report that hands-on, the PS5 Pro enhanced versions of the games I played, like The Last of Us Part 2, all look just as good playing at 60 frames per second compared to their 30 FPS fidelity mode counterparts on the PS5.
Who's playing the dogs? Over the
Final Fantasy Rebirth is also another game that gamers put on fidelity mode because it just looks so much better. Now, one thing they did mention was that it was a targeted 60 frames per second. When I played, there didn't seem to be any noticeable hiccups or drops in frames, even during fighting scenes in games such as Dragon's Dogma, for example. It was really impressive seeing some of the improvements in person rather than on the video. The draw distances and graphics in far shots looked obviously improved. The level of detail in the foreground, they look so much better. Sharper, punchier, smoother, and less jagged when you look closely. For me, the most impressive and most optimized to my eyes was the Horizon Forbidden West. The skin looked better, the shadow details looked better, the lighting coming through the clouds looked more real with less artifacts, each detail of things like individual leaves were sharper, and even things like scars or hologram graphics were all improved on.
Quanto mais golpes digitais, mais tecnologia para evitar. O Sicredi tem tudo isso e um dos sistemas mais avançados.
Eu, Andressa, na dúvida, fala comigo.
Uma propaganda, galera.
For example, in the standard edition of the PS5, you can see stars sort of disappear as you move around. But in the new PS5 Pro version, they seem so much more vibrant and full, and they don't disappear at all. It was interesting hearing Roderick from Gorilla talk about the new power of the PS5 Pro enabled them to go back and improve upon an already great-looking game. The same went for Ratchet & Clank, where you can literally see confetti disappear in the standard version, but on the PS5 Pro, the confetti still hangs around and the edges look sharper and cleaner. I also saw improvements in ray tracing reflections in higher frame rate situations in Spider-Man 2, and in Gran Turismo.
Tô aqui assistindo junto com vocês, galera. Ó, essa parte que deu uma travada no vídeo, ó, que deu em câmera lenta, ó, é pra vocês verem o reflexo, os efeitos de luz e sombra no carro, tá vendo? Tá falando do PlayStation 5
With the PS5 Pro enhanced versions of the game, there's no longer any compromise or choice between fidelity and performance. But now we get to the trickier parts of the discussion. Can I easily notice the difference between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second? Easily. Can I easily notice a difference in finer details between the PS5 Pro versions and the standard versions? Yes, I can. Especially on games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where the versatility mode looks so much better than the old performance mode, and you still get the same frames.
Even after everything.
The more nuanced and loaded question is, will people think it's worth it? Well, that depends on the person. I think we might be getting closer to a point of diminishing returns as it relates to things that gamers will really notice a huge difference. For example, for me, the jump from 30 to 60 frames per second is like, wow, I'm never going back to 30. Whereas the jump from 60 to 120 is like, wow, this is really nice. But at the same time, 60 is still pretty good for me. I do think there are people who always need to be able to have the latest and greatest, the types that really appreciate being able to console game without compromise, so obviously the Pro is appealing for people like those. You see it all the time, even PC folks who will spend a couple extra bucks just to get a few more frames per second and know they have the best piece of tech out there. To them, there's an extra satisfaction that they get, and it makes them happy. And you know what? More power to them, and if it makes them happy, who are we to care how others spend their money? But I think for a lot of people though, if it comes to a choice between gaming at performance mode or no compromises at $700, I feel like most of you are content with your current PS5 and current setup. Now, if you don't have a PS5 already and have a really nice setup with a huge screen and all the bells and whistles, well, that's a different situation. And also, another different situation is getting a chance to splurge on one of these things. Good luck.
Esse é o PlayStation 5 edição de 30 anos de aniversário da PlayStation, galera. O modelo Slim e o modelo Pro. E ali tá o DualSense e o DualSense Edge. Bom, pessoal, desculpa, bateu. Igual eu falei, foi um vídeo aí até curto, né? Não foi muito longo, acho que acabou de bater uns 10 minutos e pouco. Mas esse aí é um pouquinho do universo aí do escritório da PlayStation. Vocês viram ali que quando mostrou dentro do escritório tinha os posters do God of War, Days Gone, Death Strange. Desculpa que eu tava comendo, galera. Eu tava assistindo e comendo. Mostrou ali no trailer também Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Ratchet & Clank, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 2, né? Marvel's Spider-Man, Gran Turismo, Fórmula 1, Horizon Forbidden West, The Last of Us Part 2, Uncharted, entre outros aí exclusivos da PlayStation. Ficou alguns que não mostraram, né? Como Bloodborne, Astrobot, que acabou de lançar. Mostrou também o Demon's Souls Remake, né? Primeiro jogo aí lançado no PlayStation 5. E outros mais. Mas eu achei o vídeo interessante, galera. Ela até mostra, ó, aqui no controle ela tá fazendo toque ali na parte do touch, do DualSense e também do DualSense Edge. Que é um controle aí um pouco mais caro, né? Uma versão. Mas é esse foi o vídeo. Lembrando que tem uma versão desse vídeo aqui no canal com as legendas em português. Dessa vez o YouTube não permitiu colocar as legendas em português, então eu achei legal postar os dois vídeos, tá bom? Se você quiser e preferir, é o mesmo vídeo, né? Eu me embananei um pouco no outro vídeo, mas deu pra postar. E aí as legendas, né, estão em português, beleza? Lembrando, quem vos fala é o GUIL. Não se esqueçam de se inscrever no canal, deixa o like se vocês gostarem do vídeo, compartilha, comenta e vem com o pai que a gente quer jogar. Valeu, galera, tudo de bom sempre, aquele abraço e fui!